and Rob McGregor welcome you to a place where all kinds of phenomena flourish. Voices whisper ancient secrets, signs and symbols are abundant. UFOs, ETs, ghosts, and even the dead move about freely. Here we meet authors, researchers, and investigators of the mysterious, the strange, and of the inexplicable anomalies that surround us. Step out of the everyday world and take a journey into the mystical underground.
Welcome to the Mystical Underground. Thank you for joining us. This is Trish McGregor and
Rob McGregor,
and our producer and tech magician, John Posey. You can go to mysticalunderground.com where we make regular blog posts and where you can find out about our books. Among them are Phenomena, Harnessing Your Psychic Abilities, The Secrets of Spirit Communication, Sensing the Future, and Aliens in the Backyard. Our latest book is called Mind-Blowing Synchronicities, the latest science, stories, and research. Trish's recent novel is White Crows, and Rob's is called Tulpas. If you're watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it if you would take a second to click the like, subscribe, and notification buttons so you never miss an episode. If you prefer to listen to the shows, it is available wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe there.
Okay, our guest today is Baptiste Pape, who is a lawyer, author, and filmmaker. Called to investigate the incredible power of the heart, he went on a quest around the world interviewing many of the foremost thinkers of our time, which culminated in the renowned film and book, The Power of the Heart, which I think came out in 2014. His new book now is Manifestation Perfected, and the subtitle is 6 Steps to Embody Your Soul Purpose, in which he looks at the lives of 3 of the most important personalities in the realm of manifesting: Oprah Winfrey, J.K. Rowling, and Anita Moorjani. The book offers a series of 6 steps that anyone can adopt to become the master creator of their life and happiness. Baptiste lives in Belgium. Welcome, Baptiste.
Nice to have you.
Well, thank you, Trish and Rob. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, let's start with the concept of your title, manifestation. You write that there are 3 parts to manifesting what you want and need in life. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I think the first and foremost, most important step is to realize who we really are. I'm sure you have looked into near-death experiences. In essence, we are souls, some say spirits, but we are formless, we are energy. And in a lot of near-death experiences, for example, Anita Moorjani, who is one of the people in the book, she describes her near-death experience as connecting with another dimension, a dimension where time does not exist. So I think that you you probably believe in reincarnation, but she says it really doesn't exist. It exists as long as you are in the body. In the body, we experience time. Once we disconnect from the body, there is no time. You're in a dimension where there's no time. And she says, so there is actually no such thing as reincarnation. It's all parallel lives. Everything is happening at the same time.
That's confusing.
That's really confusing. But in a way, we could see that the body is a time machine. When we are in the body, we experience time. When we disconnect from the body, there is no time. So, sometimes people say, oh, time does not exist. In a way, that's true. But we do experience it as long as we are in the body. So the first thing is, when we are out of the body, we experience timelessness. The second thing that Anita Moorjani describes in her near-death experience is that we are unconditional love. And the third thing is we are infinite intelligence. And what she means by that is that she knew everything. And of course, it's hard to grasp how would that feel like if we would know everything at once. But she can, with her consciousness, she can be anywhere at the same time. So she sees that her brother and her brother is at an airport in India trying to catch an airplane to Hong Kong because she's in the hospital in Hong Kong at that moment in time. She sees her mother and her husband in the hospital. She sees the other doctors. There's some doctors in her room, but also in other rooms in the hospital, and she can all be aware of it at the same time. So it's really interesting. We don't have that experience on a regular day, but when we have the near-death experience, all of a sudden we start to experience ourselves as something totally different, formless, timelessness. We experience infinite intelligence. We experience unconditional love, and I think that's the place where we manifest from once we connect with that dimension.
I think her story is just one of the most, I think probably the most incredible out-of-body experience I've read about, especially what happened to her afterwards. I mean, she was on the verge of death. I mean, can you describe what her body was like at that time?
Yeah, I can describe it. So she was suffering from lymphoma. So lymphoma is cancer of the lymphatic system, and she had cancer, and the cancer was as big as lemons all over her body. She was in so much pain, and once she crosses over, all of a sudden all the pain is gone. And
she was in a coma at the time too, right?
She was in a coma. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when she's in a coma, she sees herself, floating over the bed in a way, and she can see her body. And she says, "Oh my God, there's still consciousness. I can see my own body, but I'm not in the body anymore." And she meets two people, let's say spirits, and one is her father, and the other is a dear friend that had passed a few years before. And she starts a conversation with her father, and her father tells her that she had grown the cancer because she had lived in fear all her life. In her own words, she was a doormat. She was always trying to please people, and that was because she grew up in 3 different cultures. She was an Indian woman growing up in Hong Kong, and she went to a British expat school. So at school, she was immersed in the British culture. At home, she had her Indian parents, and of course, she was living in the Chinese culture in Hong Kong, and it was all different. Mm-hmm. And every time she was trying to adapt and trying to please everyone, and in a way, she was not true to herself. She was not authentic to herself. And her father tells her the reason that you have this cancer is because you have been so far from your own core authentic energy, and that fear has grown into your cells. In that experience, she starts to connect with her original light. We can call it that, her original love, unconditional love energy, and she starts to see, oh my God, it's true. I've been a doormat all my life. I've been trying to please those people, and that has caused. I've lived in fear all my life, basically. And her father tells her, you have to treasure your own magnificence. Now that you know who you really are, you have to treasure your own magnificence. And you have to live from your essence, which is unconditional love, infinite intelligence, and of course, the timeless dimension. And of course, if you have suffered like she did, you don't want to go back. And most people that have the near-death experience don't want to go back, but they always get the message, okay, you still have a mission. And in her case, she realizes that she has the mission, but she says, I still don't want to go back. But she has one big advantage. Because she is in a dimension where time does not exist, she can already see that if she will go back into her body, within 48 hours, all the cancer will be gone.
Wow.
And that's the reason why she decides to go back. That's the only reason, because she didn't feel compelled to fulfill that mission of, telling the world about who we really are, that we really need to treasure our own magnificence, that we're in fact unconditional love. But because she sees that within 48 hours the cancer will be gone, she goes back. And of course, she goes back into the body, she comes out of the coma, and within 48 hours, the cancer is gone. But what happens, of course, is the doctors tell her, okay, we can't find the cancer anymore. This is a medical miracle. But we still don't know if the cancer is really gone, because we can see it doesn't mean it's gone. But anyway, she knows better because she had the whole experience. And what, of course, happens is the late Wayne Dyer hears about this story. Wayne lives in Maui at the time. And he lets his doctors in Maui contact the doctors at the hospital in Hong Kong because he wants to see the medical files. And the doctors in the hospital in Hong Kong really confirm, okay, this is a medical miracle. The cancer is gone within 48 hours. We don't know what happened, but it happened. And then she starts to, speak with Wayne. First, he's in his radio show. He has a radio show at the time. And then he encourages her to write a book about the whole experience. And then she gets a deal with Hay House Publishing. And then the book becomes a New York Times bestseller. And then she starts touring with Wayne, first in North America and then also in Europe. And so Wayne becomes her biggest ambassador in a way.
Yeah, I think he also went to the publisher, Hay House, and recommended her.
Absolutely.
Her story. Yeah.
Did you speak to her personally?
Yeah, I did. I was in 2014. I was at a Hay House convention in Pasadena, California, and I was backstage, and we had a really nice connection. And then she invited me to come to her workshop, and I did that. And yeah, she's the real deal, absolutely. And it also met Wayne Dyer. Then he passed, I think, in 2013, I think, Wayne. But Wayne was there. It was amazing meeting Wayne Dyer. He came on stage, and it was like he was the Beatles, one person. There was only women there at the Hay House convention, and they all, Wayne, oh, they were all. He had such a charisma. Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, we used him for and he lived there, and he lived on the beach in the morning. All these women would follow him along on the beach.
Why were there only women at this convention? That's strange.
I don't know. I was obviously.
You were the only guy?
No, there were guys, but I didn't see them. They must have been there, but I just didn't see them. It was Wayne Dyer and only women. That's what I saw.
Interesting. Now, what about Oprah and JK? Did you speak with them also?
I have been in a Skype call. I used to live with Gary Zukav. I don't know if you know.
Yes,
that is. He wrote 2 books. He wrote several books, but he helped me with the script of The Power of the Heart, and I lived there for over a period of 2 years when Linda Francis was still alive. Unfortunately, she passed. But Gary is friends with Oprah, and I once there was a Skype call between them. When I was doing The Power of the Heart, I really wanted to interview Dr. Maya Angelou. I think you know once, right?
Yes.
And I couldn't get there. I mean, every time I was trying to contact her people, they said no. And then I said to Gary, can you please ask Oprah, because maybe she can help us to interview Dr. Maya Angelou for our film, The Power of the Heart. And Oprah was in South Africa for a girls' leadership school that she has there. And within a week, we were in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to interview Maya Angelou. So Oprah made that happen for us. Yeah. Wow. But I didn't speak to her personally, but I was just a fly on the wall. Gary was speaking to her because You have to be a little bit discreet with people like Oprah, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about J.K.?
Yeah, I've reached out to her several times, but her people, replied, but I never talked to her. No,
Uh-huh.
I'm a big fan of the Harry Potter books. It's really interesting what is being described in those books. I don't know if you know who David
I love
Icke.
those books.
Do you know who David Icke is?
Sure.
Yeah, so I've interviewed David Icke many times for the past 15 years, and I always speak about Harry Potter to him, and he says, "Can't watch it, mate. It's much too dark for me." He thinks it's too dark because, according to him, it's exactly what's happening in our world right now. But it's interesting. He says she must have downloaded it while she was on the train, because it came to her in a download. She was on the train, and she just had the insight. Okay, wizard boy that doesn't know he's a wizard is going to wizardry school, and she didn't really. I mean, it was just happening to her actually. So. It's amazing how that came to her, and her story is also amazing. She was married to a Portuguese journalist living in Portugal, and the marriage didn't work out, and she was pregnant. She had a baby, and all of a sudden she has to go back to the UK, but she has no money. She can't find a job, and she decides to live in Edinburgh, Scotland, because it's cheaper to live there than in London. And her sister also lived in Edinburgh, Scotland at the time. And she can't find a job, and she becomes really depressed, and she feels like her life is a real failure. And in that, she describes it as hitting rock bottom. And in that time, she really feels like, I can't find a job. I feel a total failure. I might as well do what I always wanted to do, write. She always wanted to become an author. And she did a commencement speech at Harvard, I think, many years ago, where she talks about the power of hitting rock bottom, the power of failure. And we don't talk about it enough in our society, I think. It's always focused on winning, but there is a power in failure, because most of the time it's a course direction in our lives, right? And I think that's really interesting if you look at her life, where she had no money. She was depressed. She couldn't find a job, and all of a
Single
sudden,
mother.
Yeah, single mother. Yeah, she's able to connect with a higher force. Let's call it spirit or soul. And she says, I might as well do what I always wanted to do, because all the inessential was stripped away from me. Right.
She wrote that first book fast too.
Yeah.
It came to her. You're right. It was a download.
Yeah, and if you really look at her writing, obviously I'm not a native speaker, but I read the books in English, and she is a Shakespeare of our time, really. I mean, it's not just children's books; it's real literature, I think. And I enjoyed those books so much. And of course now it's really interesting, because there's a lot of backlash right now.
Right.
He's very critical of, let's say, the whole transgender that's happening.
Which was kind of a disappointment, I think, to people because of the Harry Potter books,
Yeah. If you look at the cover of the book right now, it's a rainbow cover of my books. I'm decided. But I do think what I respect her for is she always will speak her mind, and I think it's important that her voice is heard too.
Yeah, she went her own way too. She didn't follow the guidelines for how you write a young adult novel.
No,
it should have been about 40,000 words, and you know how thick that is. Probably 150,000 words
at least.
She couldn't find a publisher. She was turned down like so many times, and of course, turning her down was like turning down the Beatles.
Right.
And when she got a first publishing deal, they told her, "Okay, you're a woman, and this is going to be
and you have to use initials." I went through the same damn thing. Yep, that's what they used to do.
Yeah, but you see that eventually it didn't, once it, of course, when she became, when the books became successful, all of a sudden it was public, of course, that she was a woman. It didn't hold didn't
Right.
help the boys back, right? Yeah.
Just out of
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, was it because the publishers were envisioning Harry Potter as a boys brand, or
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they
Because
thought
Well, that, John, and also the fact that when women were writing back in the 80s and 90s, that's what they used to do. They say, well, you have to use initials. So we
Yeah.
don't know initially if you're.
Yeah, but if that was even part of it, that's crazy, because
Yeah.
the biggest Harry Potter fans I know are female. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that the case? The biggest Harry Potter fans are female?
That I know.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, it could just, but yeah, that may just be a an anomaly, but yeah.
Well, our daughter bought the first book and she read it in a night. Then for now bought all the rest as soon as they came out. I mean, she
Right.
grew up on Harry Potter.
Yeah. So if you look at Anita Moorjani's story and then J.K. Rowling's story, what do they have in common? Is they both hit rock bottom.
Uh-huh.
Actually, Anita Moorjani was dying, and J.K. Rowling describes her life as a total failure at the time.
Mm.
So
Then she became the first billionaire writer.
yeah, absolutely.
That's really.
Yeah, but she gave a lot. She donated it to charity. She's still a billionaire if she hadn't donated so much. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
What about Oprah?
Yeah, Oprah is also an interesting story, of course. Oprah was born in Mississippi, the most racist state at the time.
Might still be.
Yeah, might still be. And in her own words, she was as poor as you can be without having a roof over your head. And in her own words, she was fat, big, and ugly. Those are her words. And she realized that she didn't had a lot to live for, actually. Her mother was a maid, her grandmother was a maid, and she was raised for a while by her grandmother. And her grandmother was, telling her, I hope you find yourself some nice white folks to work for. I mean, the expectation was that Oprah was also going to be a maid.
Uh-huh.
Mississippi. Yeah. So, but something inside her said, she was in the Baptist church at the time, and she was very religious, and she was praying all the time to God. And she said, God, it's obvious that I don't have a lot to live for. You please, I'm just going to serve you. Show me what you want. And that was her prayer at the time. And again, you can say that if you compare her with J.K. Rowling and Anita Moorjani, Oprah was born in a rock bottom situation. If her parents were only together for one time, and that's when she was made.
Wow.
So it was just a one-time meeting. And so if you look at where she started, she is really the American dream. I mean, more than anyone, I think she is the American dream. And she created that Michael Jordan kind of success. A lot of people don't realize anymore where Oprah started from.
Uh-huh.
And we forgot that, I think. But this is where she started. Yeah.
She was really a dynamo when she was campaigning for Kamala Harris. And she held that group. That was incredible.
Yeah.
It was really good.
It's interesting that Morgan Freeman is from Mississippi as well, and actually graduated from Ole Miss.
Oh, he did. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Baptiste, the subtitle of your book, 6 Steps to Embody Your Soul Purpose. Can you just take us through these steps and let us know what this? You say that anybody can follow these steps, and
I mean, you don't have to hit rock bottom first, right?
Well, it helps. I mean, most of the time, people really do want to fit in. People just want to be quote unquote normal and want to fit in. And most of the time, you don't go to your soul when you're not in a crisis. If you just have a nice life, there's no reason. And I, from interviewing all those people, I mean, Eckhart Tolle, Paulo Coelho, the author of The Alchemist, Isabel Allende, Jane Goodall, Maya Angelou too. I mean, Maya Angelou's life. I mean, Maya Angelou, she was a force of nature, whether you like her or not. I mean,
Oh, I love her. She's good.
her life was incredible, and she was brutally honest about everything. I mean, people tried. I mean, she became an icon for the Democratic Party, you know. But she worked as a prostitute for a long time, and when I interviewed her, there was no embarrassment whatsoever about that. And she said, I had to do what I had to do, and that was my life, and it made me a better person. It made me someone who can relate to everyone.
I think she was raped at age 9, wasn't she? Or
Yeah, really young.
Yeah. But of course, she became. I mean, she spoke at the I think first inauguration of Bill Clinton.
Yes.
And she was, good friends with Obama and Oprah. Everyone, tried to cover up that she was a prostitute for a while, but she didn't want to have that. She said, "I did that, and I'm not ashamed. That was part of my life, and that's why I think she's so great. I mean, many reasons, but that's one of the reasons why I think she was so authentic, and she." When I interviewed her in her home in Winston-Salem, when she came in, she was hooked to an oxygen tank. Came in with a walker, but still her presence was, I mean, she filled up the room. It was incredible. I think a few months after I interviewed her, she passed. But I never met, other maybe than Wayne Dyer, someone with such a big energy. That was just But anyway, going back to your question, you don't need to hit rock bottom. But I think the first step, if you want to manifest, is that you realize that you are formless, that you are a soul. And I think the best way to grasp that is to look at Anita Moorjani's story, who still is totally aware of everything while she's in a coma. But there's other stories. I mean, even Dr. Ebel Alexander. There's so many books. I mean, you've got Raymond Moody.
Yeah, he started it all.
Yeah, he started it all. You've got Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I mean, there's so many testimonials about people who went through that, who say, okay, there is a consciousness that's just, there, whether you are alive or not, right? So I think the first step is that we realize who we really are. We are a soul, and the soul is a dimension of timelessness, infinite intelligence, unconditional love. That's our essence, and I think that's the first step. I think the second step is that we realize that the soul is not passive. The soul has intentions. And I love the work of Gary Zukav. He talks about authentic power. Authentic power is when your personality starts to serve the energy of your soul. And we are here for a reason. The only challenge is that, how can we identify, of course, what our soul wants? I think, our soul is not passive. Our soul has intentions. And I think step 3 is we have to identify what are the intentions of our soul. And, for a fish, it's easy. The element of a fish is to fly. And the element of a fish is to swim, of course. The element of a
There may be
bird,
some that fly.
yeah, absolutely. You've got flying fishes. But our soul is connected to our element. We all have our specific soul blueprint in a way. But we can't get there through rational, logical, linear thinking. Can only get there, I think, when we open our heart. I believe that our heart is the seat of the soul. And when we open our heart, we connect with our soul and we start to see that it has intention. But the soul speaks to us in energy most of the time. So we have to really feel our way there. And we can only get there when we start to feel. And I think if you have the soul and the mind, then a great metaphor is when you're on a boat on a river. When you're on a boat on a river, and when you are the mind, you can only see the next bend on the river. You can only see so far. You can only see the next bend of on the river. But when you are the soul, you can see everything from bird's eye view in a way. You can see the whole river from source to sea, but we don't trust it, and we can only learn to trust it when we start to experiment. I think, energy of the soul. Yeah. So that's step 3. Yeah. Then,
Is this what happened to you to write this book?
it was when I wrote this book, I was living with Gary Zukav in Ashland, Oregon at the time, and it just came to me one night. I said, "Okay, I've got 3 women from 3 different continents in the world: Asia, Europe, and North America. And what do they have in common? They all were in a rock bottom situation, and through connecting with their soul, they managed to rise from the ashes and totally turn it around. It was all because they started to listen to their higher self. And I thought it's really interesting. And I started to speak about this with Gary, and he said, "Oh, that's a great idea." And then, obviously, I mean, he knew Oprah very well, so that helped getting information from him about Oprah. So Gary really encouraged me to write. Yeah. And then because I was living in the United States at the time, I decided to write it in English, and I had a friend who is a professor in Boston in English literature, and he was my ghostwriter.
That's helped.
Because obviously I'm not a native speaker, but he helped me to write the book. Yeah.
And what's the 4th step? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. So the 4th step is that once we are able to identify the intentions of the soul, we have to take action. If we know what the soul wants, then we can't just sit and contemplate. We have to take action and listen to what it wants to do. Yeah.
And the 5th?
The 5th is let the universe co-create. So what I've learned is that once you start to follow the energy of the soul, then you start to experience synchronicities. Synchronicity is a word coined by Carl Jung.
Right.
And if you experience synchronicity, you immediately know that there's power, there's purpose, there's a meaning behind the synchronicity. And it is, I think, a wink of the universe saying to you, "Okay, you're on the right path. Continue with it." Yeah, I think that's
a confirmation.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
And it's synchronicity is linked to the deeper self, the soul itself, I would guess.
Absolutely.
It's a link to the universe too.
Yeah, I interviewed Rowling McGrady from the HeartMath Institute in California. I think you know about the HeartMath Institute.
Yes.
And he said, when you're connected with your heart, he said to me, synchronicities happen all the time. But when you are not connected with your heart, you don't see them.
That's right.
And when you're connected with your heart, because it is the seed of the soul, you start to see them. They are happening all the time, but most of the time we're not aware of them. So that's really interesting.
Well, a lot of people just dismiss them. Is that, oh, that's kind of an interesting coincidence. Well, it's not a coincidence,
Or they don't even notice it,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about the 6th and final step?
Yeah, the 6th step is to stay connected to your soul. I mean, Maya Angelou said it beautifully. She said, "Every day I go to the heart. Every day I ask the heart, teach me, show me." And, every morning I make a conscious decision to go to my heart and my soul through meditation, through cultivating gratitude, through heart math exercises, heart coherence exercises. I think it has to be a conscious decision. Our heart is not meant to be open all the time. Sometimes the heart is closed, and it's our job to go back there, and I think sometimes our hearts are broken open through a crisis. But it is our job to consciously make the decision every day to go there again. Yeah.
Okay, so what kinds of things have happened to you since you've written this book? What kind of synchronicities have come about?
Well, I think my great quote unquote awakening experience was the power of the heart. So the power of the heart is in a book. You can watch the film on Gaia. You can the spiritual net. And I've interviewed Eckhart Tolle, Paulo Coelho, Jane Goodall, Isabel Allende, Maya Angelou, all those people. Let's call them ambassadors of the heart. And that was really my awakening. And it started with me. I was a lawyer in the city of Amsterdam, but I was very unhappy. And one night I started to look on Google and I was Googling how can I find my purpose in life, because I'm not living my purpose. I felt that I was not living my purpose. And I stumbled upon a video where Oprah was in conversation with Eckhart Tolle. And the video started with Oprah saying, I think there's nothing more important than finding your purpose in life. And Eckhart, he nodded and he said, yes, I agree, but you cannot get there through thinking. And for me, that was, wow, mind-blowing, because all I knew was my mind and thinking. I didn't even know that there was more to it. And he said, if you want to find your purpose in life, then you can ask yourself, what do I want? But a more powerful question would be, what does life want from me? So what does the bigger picture want from me? Or maybe the higher self want from me? And he said, if you want to find answers to that question, what does life want from me? You have to look for moments of stillness. And the best way to do that is to go into nature. So I went into nature and I started to meditate on the question, what does life want from me? And that's how my life changed. Because what happened?
What kind of law were you practicing?
Corporate law.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was with a big British law firm, and I wanted to become a partner, but I felt loss of soul. I felt disconnected from my soul, but I didn't realize it at the time. I felt something is off here, and when I started to meditate on that question in nature, nothing happened. And I was like, I did it for a few hours, nothing happened. And I thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to send Eckhart Tolle an email that it doesn't work, just asking that question. And all of a sudden it started to rain. So I was running because I wanted to hide from the rain. And I was finding a place to hide from the rain and under, I think, 5-6 big trees. And when I was standing under those trees, I felt like I had a heart attack. I felt like there was a bone in my heart and it broke. That's what I felt. And I thought, oh my God, this is the answer to the question, what does life want from me? It's over. That's, And if I had to describe the feeling, yes, it felt like a bone broke in my heart. And when that happened, I felt an overwhelming feeling of love, of grace, of coming home. And like a download, the idea came to me, okay, you have to make a film about the heart.
Wow.
And I was standing there under those trees. Hallelujah. I'm going to make it about the heart. I feel so good. It was like falling in love. You just knew it. And, I was standing there for 10 minutes and I was like, after 10 minutes, okay, you're crazy now. You're a lawyer. You don't know anything about the heart. You don't know anything about film production. So it's a ridiculous idea. But I also thought, okay, I have always followed my mind and I'm not happy. And I remembered what Martin Luther King had said. He said, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. And I decided at that moment just to follow the energy. And 5 years later, there was not only a film, but also a book.
Wow.
I got a publishing deal with Simon & Schuster in New York, and they bought the world rights. So the book was published in 80 countries.
Wow.
And it became an international bestseller. So it was amazing.
That's wonderful.
So had you met Eckhart Tolle? So happened? How did that?
So I interviewed him for 3 days in his holiday home in Salt Spring Island in British Columbia. It's close to Vancouver. I spent time there 3 days with Kim Eng, his partner, and with him, and it was amazing. I mean, Eckhart Tolle, he's totally different in real life. I mean, I was hanging out with him for 3 days, and he likes to smoke cigars. He likes a good glass of wine. He's, I'm European, he's European too, but I mean, he's German and I am Belgian Dutch, so it's quite similar cultures actually. So he was making jokes. So he asked me, and he was cracking jokes all the time. So he asked me, Ties, what is America on Valium? You know Valium? You know what Valium?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is America on Valium? And I said, I don't know. He asked me again, what is America on Valium? And I said, I had no idea. And he said, it's Canada.
Which is where you were.
He couldn't stop laughing.
That's good.
I mean, he had lived in San Francisco for a while in the Bay Area. And obviously, I think where I come from, I mean, Belgium and Holland are a little bit more American, I think. I mean, New York used to be New Amsterdam. So we're very direct. We have a very direct culture. And the British culture is more apologetic, more reserved. So it's really different. So when you drive from, let's say, Seattle into Vancouver, it's a totally different energy. It's amazing. And Canadians are really different from Americans. Also for me as a European, it's a totally different energy. I love Canadians, but it's different. With Americans, it's easier because they're more direct and more forthcoming. And Canadians are more apologetic. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Trudeau was pretty direct with Trump when he said, "We want you as the 51st state."
Yeah.
Trudeau. Yeah. Okay, dude.
I think the thing is the Crown sent all the direct folks from the British Commonwealth to Australia a long time ago.
Yes, but if you go to Montreal, it's really different because there's the French. The French are more direct than the British. And in Montreal, people are really different from, let's say, people in BC. It's really different. Yeah.
How does Toronto differ?
Toronto is a little bit the New York city of Canada. Yeah. So in Toronto, people are more straightforward than, let's say, in Vancouver or Calgary. Yeah. But I love Canada. I mean, I understand why Eckhart Tolle chose to live there. It's really interesting because when I was there for 3 days, I was not only there with Kim Eng, his partner, but Gary Zukav was also with me. And it's interesting if you look at Gary's background and Eckhart Tolle's background, there are a lot of similarities actually. They're both.
Had they ever met?
No. So
oh wow.
It was really interesting because Gary. Now this is a long story, but what happened? I started. It took me 5 years to produce that film, and in the first year, I approached Eckhart Tolle's people to interview him, but they thought I was a total nobody, so they didn't want to work with me. So 3 years into the project, Eckhart has to speak at Google. So he has a little Jaguar, and he drove from Vancouver to where are the Google headquarters in the Bay Area somewhere. Anyway, and then he drove back from Bay Area back to Vancouver, but he made a stop in Oregon, in Ashland, where Gary lives. And that was the first time they met. So he stayed over at Gary's place for a few days, and they're talking, and they're talking about what they're working on. And Gary says, "Yeah, I'm working on a project film with a guy from Europe." And Eckhart says, "Okay, show me." And he shows the trailer we had at the time, and he saw Jane Goodall and Deepak and all those people who were already in the film. And Eckhart said, "Oh, I would like to be in that too." So in the middle of the night, I get a phone call from the United States. I was in Europe at the time, and said, Gary called me, "Hey, Baptiste, listen up. Eckhart is here, and he wants to be in the film." And so that's how it
great.
happened. Yeah, so Eckhart decided to be in the film, and that's when we interviewed him in his holiday home in BC. But it was interesting because when Eckhart had his awakening, he was obviously still in England. He was doing his PhD at Cambridge. And he couldn't, at one point after his awakening, he felt the inclination to go to the United States, and he went to the Bay Area, and all of a sudden he could write The Power of Now, his classic book, of course.
Uh-huh.
And he said he couldn't write in Europe. He could only write in Bay Area. And the interesting thing was that Gary wrote The Seed of the Soul also in the Bay Area, and also, by the way, the Dancing Woolly Masters is too classic. And they said there's something with the energy in California. And I also felt it too, because I wrote The Power of the Heart, most of the book in California. So there's something with the energy. So they both said there's something in California with the earth, we don't know, but it's giving us inspiration to write. So when Eckhart was working on The Power of Now, when he once in a while he had to go back to England. He only could do editing work in England. He couldn't write.
Interesting.
And so with Gary, it's the same story. So it's really interesting.
I had that type of experience the first time I went to New York City, and it just so happened that I was the job I was working at the time. I was actually working out of the Hershey, Pennsylvania area, and one weekend I took Amtrak into Penn Station, and I came walking up. So first time I've been through New York on like a bus a long time ago, matter of fact, going to Toronto, but had never had feet on the ground in downtown in Manhattan. And I just remember walking up the steps onto 34th Street, and as I walked up those steps, I could just maybe I thought it was just I just thought it was the number of people that I was walking, that inhabited, the city. But I mean, as I was walking up the steps onto the sidewalk from underneath, from Penn Station, you could just feel the energy. I still call it the human charging station. It's just like the energy that place holds is amazing to me.
Well, same is true of San Francisco.
Yeah.
You do feel the energy there when you're there. It's just...
Yeah, I mean, the Dancing Woolly Masters was written there. Seed of the Soul was written there. Power of Now was written there. Most people don't realize that.
But the publisher
I didn't know that.
in New York.
Yeah, the publishers are always in New York. I mean, it's the mecca of publishing,
The mainstream publishers, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, Gary's story is also really interesting. So he's a Jewish boy from Kansas, and he gets a scholarship for Harvard, which is a big deal. And so the whole village is celebrating little Gary's going to Harvard. And Gary, he gets into Harvard, of course, and he talked about this. I mean, he did like 33 Oprah shows, I think.
Yeah.
At the time when he was in the 90s, when he was on the Oprah show, he told me he couldn't, when he was at an airport, he couldn't, I mean, he was so famous at the time, he couldn't get around on the airport. Everybody was coming to him. But he spoke openly about his addictions. And he was suffering from a sex addiction, but he was also very intelligent and manipulative. So he knew how to, get his satisfaction, let's say. And he talked about this on the Oprah show many times. And after graduating from Harvard, he went into special forces. And after special forces, he started to travel around the world. And then he arrived in San Francisco. He said, okay, I'm going to stay here for a while. And in San Francisco, he started to become interested in quantum physics. And he started to interview professors from Stanford about quantum physics. And then he decided to write a novel about quantum physics. And that, of course, became the Dancing Woolly Masters. You've read the book, but I
haven't read the book. I've heard about it.
So the Dancing Woolly Masters is a novel about quantum physics. It's really good. Anyway, the book is not doing very well until a journalist of the New York Times picks it up and reads it and writes a very positive article about it. And in that year, he sells 1 million copies of
wow.
The Dancing Woolly Masters. So the interesting story, and why I'm sharing this, because it all comes back, of course, to the soul, is that whenever he is writing and doing research for the Dancing Woolly Masters, he's not suffering from his sex addiction. And he said, whoa, every time I'm working on this book, my sex addiction is gone.
Huh.
And he starts to realize, okay, there's another energy. I don't know what it is, but it is compelling, and it is, a larger energy than just my personality. And this, of course, becomes the foundation for his second book, The Seed of the Soul, which becomes a spiritual classic. So interesting thing. He starts to live more like a monk, more like a reclusive, because he's not interested in sex anymore. He wants to leave San Francisco, and he decides to move to Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is still California. It's on the border with Oregon, right? It's close to Oregon. I don't know if you've been there, Mount Shasta.
No, I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah. So I've been there with Gary. It's just one street, basically. But he starts to live above the sound bowl shop. There is just one big sound bowl shop there, and he starts to live there. But he's living as a reclusive, no phone, nothing.
Huh.
He doesn't watch television. So the book, The Seed of the Soul, becomes a success in, let's say, spiritual circles in the United States. And of course, Oprah Winfrey, who's always interested in spirituality, picks the book up and she starts to read it. So she calls Simon & Schuster in New York, because that's the publisher, and she says, hey, I want to interview Gary Zukav. And Simon & Schuster says, good luck with that, because he's living like a reclusive. He doesn't do any interviews. They tell her where he lives, and she calls the sound bowl shop at the time. So this is all happening in the 90s. So the owner of the sound bowl shop yells, Gary, come down. There's someone who wants to talk to you. So Gary comes down, and at that time, Oprah Winfrey's already, the biggest show in right. So he talks to him. She says, hello, I'm Oprah Winfrey, and I would like to have you on my radio show, not television
Not
show.
TV, yeah.
She thought maybe this is a little bit too exotic yet for television. And he says, I don't know who you are, and I'm not going to do it. He has no idea who Oprah is. So really interesting. So, okay, end of the conversation. I think a few days later, she feels like, no, I need to persuade him to come. So she calls him again, and she starts to explain who she is. And she persuades him to come to Chicago, and they do their first radio show. And they like each other so much, there's an instant connection. And then they start to do, I think, 33 shows. So
TV or radio?
Yeah, TV.
Yeah.
So, I think except for maybe Chris Rock or Celine Dion, he was one of the most popular guests in the 90s. He was like Dr. Phil at the time.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, the story that he didn't want this, but he knew that there was this soul, and he started to follow it and listen to it. And then he becomes a reclusive. He doesn't want to, do anything with the world anymore. And then he becomes this superstar for 10 years. Yeah. So he really didn't want it. It was interesting.
What's he doing now? What is he writing more?
Yeah. So in 2022, Linda, his spiritual partner, passed away, unfortunately. So he's now in his 80s. He's still living in Ashland, Oregon, and he's still, doing videos and conferences. He's still going strong right now, but he's in his 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
But did it take an Oprah to pull him out? Is that kind of maybe the point of the story? I mean, it could. I mean, did it take someone of that,
stature?
Yeah, she
Fame.
obviously, well, and I guess what I'm trying to, her energy is pretty massive, I mean, just for her to pull him out of the shell. I guess the question is, do you think, did it take someone like an Oprah to accomplish that? It's not like just anybody could have convinced him to do that.
Yeah, I think Oprah somehow felt that, she said about the book, it's my favorite book other than the Bible. Now she's saying that, of course, about the power of now. because Oprah obviously also gave Eckhart a big platform. But I do think that yes, she was the only one who could do this, because I think from having all these conversations, even with Linda. So Linda fell in love with him, and he didn't. He still wanted to be a reclusive, so she had to go back all the time. Come on, Gary, maybe we should be together. He didn't want it anymore. So it was really interesting that yeah, he was already fulfilled in a way. Yeah, and with Eckhart the same thing. When Oprah called him the first time to do a show, Eckhart was like, okay, yeah. I mean, but he was not very happy or something. He was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Yeah. Yeah.
What was Linda like?
Oh, she was such a sweetheart. So Linda, I mean, Gary's very intelligent, and Linda was really very intuitive. So they really completed each other in that way. She was always so loving, also for me, but for everyone. She was really the heart. Such a sweet lady, and they completed each other. They did conferences together and seminars together, and she was really the soft touch. Yeah. But because Gary, I mean, it's good as a spiritual teacher. You cannot always. Sometimes you need to give people tough love, right? Gary did that, but that was not her approach. No. She
Interesting.
was really mother figure.
To change the subject a little bit, can you give us some recommendations on how we should deal with the everyday world and the political chaos that we're living in the United States and around the world?
Yeah, it's all
within the confines of your book, the concept.
Yeah, I love Ram Dass. Ram Dass was not a big fan of George W. Bush. So he had a photo of George W. Bush on his nightstand, right? And he said, every time I see his picture, reminds me that I have to work on myself a little bit more. So I think that too. I mean, there's people in the United States who love Trump. There's people who hate him, and there's no zone in between. It seems, right? Like, so
those of us who hate him should put his picture on our nightstand.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. I don't know, man. I don't know if I could do that.
Because it means, yeah, we need to work on ourselves. I mean, if this is really a simulation or a matrix, then it's all a reflection of our consciousness, what's inside of us. And I mean, Gandhi was right. Be the change you want to see in the world. Can't force people into being what you want them to be. It's not going to happen. So become everything that you want to see in the world. You have to become it. That's the only that we can do. I think it's a reflection of our own consciousness. And I've been into remote viewing for 23 years. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, we know some remote viewers.
And it put me in a strange spot back in 2016. In 2016, I was in Portland, Oregon, and I was doing a remote viewing workshop at the time with 100 remote viewers. Most of them were Americans, and Portland is, let's say, more democratic generally, right? The people are Democrats, and there were a few people from BC, from Canada. So we did a session, and again, this is February 2016, but there would be elections, of course, in November 2016. We were doing a session, and in a remote viewing, you have to be blind about the target, so you don't know what the target is.
Right.
Anyway, but the question behind the target was, who is going to be the next president of the United States? And while they were doing the session, a woman from Kelowna, British Columbia, screamed out, "Oh my God, I see Donald Trump!" So she saw Donald Trump. And people did their sessions, and I said, "Okay, give me your sessions, and after the lunch break, I will come back and we will tell you what the majority report is." Because with majority reports in remote viewing, if you work in groups,
right?
And there was a big majority report, I think 80% or more, that Trump was going to be the next president of the United States. So I told those people, and again, I'm surrounded by Democrats, right?
Uh-huh.
And all my friends, I mean, are Democrats in the United States. So it was like, yeah. But I told them, according to this majority report, Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. So those people, they said to me, oh, this is obviously the confirmation that remote viewing doesn't work because you're a European and you don't know anything about American politics. But Trump is a clown. He's just, participating for the attention. He's never going to be the next president of the United States. And at that time, he was still one of the candidates of the Republican Party. So one of the candidates at the time. So there was no reason why he would be the next president of the United States. And then I went with another team of remote viewers, and every month I started to remote view again who would be the next president of the United States in March, April, May, and every month it was the same. Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. So I started to share this with my American friends, and they all started to hate me because yeah, no, it's true. They thought it was my personal wish that he would become president. Just what I saw. I said, listen, I don't have any skin in the game. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican.
Right.
I'm from Europe who's here. But Donald Trump is going to be the next president. And of course, when it happened, there was one guy. I mean, because even the pundits were saying Hillary was going to be president. There was one guy, and it was Michael Moore, right?
Yeah.
Michael Moore, he took his little van and he was working on a documentary called Trumpland. Right. And he went into the Rust Belt and started to interview all those people. And after doing this documentary, he went back to New York and he was on national television and he said, okay, people, I've got a big warning for you, but Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States.
I remember that.
I've interviewed so many people, he said, and when they call for their polls, on the phone, are not going to admit that they're going to vote for Donald Trump because it's politically incorrect, right? So they're not going to be honest about it. But he said to me, they're honest because I'm with my fan and they talk to me. I'm having lunch with them and we hang out. I said, and again, Michael Moore was a Bernie Sanders supporter, right?
Exactly.
He's the Democrat. He's a socialist,
right?
So he didn't want Donald Trump to become president, but he was saying it too. And he was warning people. And he was the only guy that I was listening to at the time. I said, okay, he is seeing what I am seeing in remote viewing. It was really interesting.
That's fascinating.
And it is interesting because if I understood your timeline, that the remote viewing session in Portland, I mean, because at that point he had not won the nomination yet, and I don't think anybody in the world, certainly in the U.S., thought that he was even going to get the nomination, let alone win the presidency.
Yeah, he was considered a joke, basically.
Yeah,
absolutely. So
I wish I'd known you then, and you had told me. I would have moved out of the country then.
When I told the people this, the Canadians were okay with it, but the Democrats supported no way. So I said, listen, I'm going to look and see what the online bookmakers are giving in terms of quotation for this. And at that point in time, it was 100 to 1. So I said, I don't know what your guys are doing, but I'm going to buy Donald Trump. So I did that every month and started to buy Donald Trump. So this is the thing. At the last night, I think November 5, before the elections, all the big bookmakers in Europe, so most of the time they're British, they were so convinced that Hillary was going to win that they paid out everyone who put their money on Hillary. And I was like, okay, I don't know what's happening, but the remote viewing is still saying Donald is going to be president. Everyone expected Hillary on November 5, the day before the elections, to win. Even the bookmakers. So the next day when Trump won, I was celebrating, of course, but for other reasons. I mean, it was not my personal preference, but it was just what remote viewing was saying.
Yeah.
Most of the time when remote viewing is saying something which is not your personal preference, it is a good session. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mhm, yeah.
Well, and I think
Exactly.
I think those are two really good markers there. Remote viewing
Yeah.
and the bookies in Vegas. They they are not
They're-
interested. They're not interested. Yeah, your people aren't going to. People are gonna put their money where their heart is, not
Yeah.
like they do with the polls. Yep. So.
Yeah, pollsters don't.
I think in a way it's good that I'm not an American, because I look at it, I'm more detached in a way, right? I'm not a Republican. And I mean, for me as a European, yeah, Trump is very entertaining, at least. It is like, if you saw what happened with Zelensky, it's like, I mean, the Saturday Night Live, they did a sketch on it.
Saw that.
Real life is more surreal than the Saturday Night Live. Hey,
That's
Exactly.
a hard time making fun of it because it's so.
It's so ludicrous.
The real thing is crazier than the
Stranger.
production.
yeah, the real thing
Stranger.
is- because
Stranger than fiction.
it's so disrespectful. You're not wearing a suit, and then look at Elon Musk in the White House.
Right.
Yeah,
Right in the Oval
with
Office.
his cap on. It's like doesn't make
And
any
he's got his whipping with that his weapon. I mean,
It's so disrespectful that you're not wearing a suit. I mean, Zelensky said, once the war is over, I will wear a suit. He's wearing no suit because he wants to show that he's, what's the word?
Commander.
Yeah, he wants to show that he's a commander, but it's also a sign of, listen, I'm with my people right now. I'm
yeah,
not wearing
exactly.
a suit. That's what he's doing.
Well,
It's a statement. It's a statement. It's him not wearing.
Yeah.
And it is also more comfortable. So.
Yeah, well, that too.
So, Batista, I think we're coming to the end of our time.
Oh,
here.
this has been great. Anytime you want to come back, please let us know.
Thank you for the conversation.
Great
Yeah,
talking to
we
you.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Oh,
I
we
just
did
wanna
too.
Say, I got one thing from your book that I just want to say that what seems to kind of summarize for me is when you are yourself, everything falls into place.
Yeah. Synchronicity.
Yes. So the message that Anita Moorjani is giving us, if you align with the energy of your soul, then everything that truly belongs to you comes to you effortlessly.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's really important. I mean, Eckhart Tolle is saying, if you get the inside right, the outside will fall into place. And Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of heaven within, and then all else will be added on to you. So I think it's all the same teaching.
Thank you very much. Great. Thank you. Well,